of medical importance into various groups. For each parasite, describe history, geographical distribution, habitat, morphology, life cycle, mode of infection, along with the effects of parasite that it can cause at the local or general level. That is revealed with clinical manifestation in the form of signs and symptoms. And we also should know the means of prevention, control, and treatment of these parasites. Let us begin with the introduction. So, human and other living things on earth live in close relationship with each other. They don't exist in an isolated fashion. They are interdependent. Each forms a strand in the web of life. Parasitology is nothing but study of parasites, their host, and the relationship between them. Medical parasitology, that is what we are dealing with, is nothing the subject which deals with the parasites that infect human beings and diseases caused by them, their clinical features which are produced, and the response generated by human against them. It's also concerned with the various methods of their diagnosis, treatment, and finally their prevention and control. So let us define some terminologies under Introduction to Parasitology. First, dealing with parasite. What is a parasite? Parasite is a living organism that acquires some of its basic nutritional requirements through its intimate contact with another living organism. So, parasite is one which is harbored by the host. So parasite may be simple unicellular protozoa or it may be complex multicellular metazoa. Eukaryotes are there. What is eukaryote? It is a cell with a well-defined chromosome in a membrane bounded with nucleus. All parasitic organisms are under eukaryotes. Protozoa, unicellular organism, metazoa, multicellular organism, example worms and arthropods. Under protozoa, all the amoebas. So an endoparasite, a parasite that lives within another living organism, that is they are residing inside the parasite which is residing inside the body, say for inside the RBCs, in body cavity, in the digestive system, like that. An ectoparasite is one where the parasite that lives on the external surface of the body of another living organism. Example, leaves, ticks. Hosts, the organism in or on which the parasite lives, or an organism that harbors the parasite, usually larger than the parasite. So here host is the organism which harbors the parasite and usually it is larger than that of the parasite. Definitive host is the host, the organism in which the adult or sexually mature stage of the parasite is lived during its life cycle. There are intermediate hosts, the organism in which the parasite lives during a period of its development only, and the host harboring the larva or asexual stage of parasite. So we have seen what is host. So host is nothing but which harbors the parasite, okay, for its nutrition and life. And what is definitive host? Definitive host is the one which take care of the adult or sexual mature stage of the parasite. Then we understood the term that is intermediate host, where the organism is only taking its part for its larval or asexual stage of development. There can be two intermediate hosts also required for one parasitic life. So for example, Paragonymous westermani, where the crab and the snail both are intermediate hosts. So two intermediate hosts and one definitive host can also be there. Now zoonosis. Zoonosis is nothing but diseases of parasite, disease of animals. So a parasitic disease in which an animal is normally the host, but which is also which can also infect the man. So that is zoonosis. So zoonosis is the disease of the animals. Vector, a living carrier, example an arthropod, that transports a pathogenic organism from one infected to a non-infected host. So that is a vector. So a vector is nothing but a carrier which transport the pathogenic organism to one to another. So they can be in mechanical or biological form. Epidemiology, that is the geographical distribution, although parasitic infestations occur globally, and the majority occurs in tropical regions where there is poverty, poor sanitation, and low personal hygiene. Different kinds of parasites are there. Previously also we have seen the ectoparasite and the endoparasite. Ectoparasite which resides outside the body, and endoparasites which resides inside the body. So we have examples over here. Ectoparasites example, lice, ticks, mites, etc., which are living outside the body for their nourishment. By sucking blood they are living. Endoparasite, the one which is residing inside, say for Entamoeba histolytica, which is in the intestine. Then there are obligate parasite, that means a parasite which cannot live without a parasitic life. It will die if it is not living a parasitic life. So that parasite is called as obligate parasite. So example over here is Plasmodium. Plasmodium species are obligate parasite. They will die if they are not dependent on a host. Other comes non-pathogenic parasites. So here uh, non-pathogenic parasite, they live in the body of the host, but they do not cause any disease. They can be opportunistic parasite, that is when there is an opportunity they turn into parasitic life. So opportunistic parasite or facultative parasite, they cause illness in individual with impaired defense mechanism, and in that condition they can be in active form of becoming a parasite. And example is in cases of AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or in cases of immune deficiency diseases. Different kinds of hosts are there. So we have seen definitive host, intermediate host. There is another term called as paratenic host. So once again, let us define what is definitive host. So the one which harbors a parasite in the adult stage, or where the parasite undergoes a sexual method of reproduction, that becomes definitive host. Under medical parasitology, most of the parasitic life, man is only the definitive host. Exceptionals are there. Intermediate host harbors the larval stage of parasite, or an asexual cycle of development takes place. So in cases of malaria, or in case of plasmodium infestation, man is intermediate host and the vector is definitive host. So what is paratenic host now? An intermediate host whose presence may be required for the completion of parasitic life. Cycle can be in which no development of parasite occur. So here it is like an intermediate host where there is whose presence may be required for completion of a parasitic life, but here no development change of that parasite is taking place. That means it is just a carrier or a transport. Reservoir host, it is the parasite where it is available for the transmission to another host. So reservoir is one, but they are available for transmission to another host and is usually not affected by infection. Animals harboring the same species of parasite as man. That means animals, they can be a reservoir host. Man can also be a reservoir host, and they are in route of transmission to another host, and potential source of human infections are seen due to reservoir host. Now accidental host, a host that is under normal circumstances not infected with the parasite. So here accidental host, a host that is under normal circumstances not infected with the parasite, but they can accidentally can get infected. Life cycle and the types of life cycle. So a parasite completes its life cycle with the host, and the life cycle can be with a direct life cycle or indirect life cycle. So direct life cycle, only one host is required. There is no intermediate host. Such cycle is called as direct life cycle. And there is indirect life cycle, where life cycle with more than one host, that is intermediate host is also there and a definitive host is there. So that comes with a indirect life cycle. Now let us see some terminologies related to symbiotic association or symbiotic relationship. So organism that spends a portion of all of its life cycle intimately associated with another organism of a different species is considered as symbiont. This relationship is called as symbiosis. So one organism with other species which is having a relation to maintain their life cycle comes under symbiotic relationship. There are three types. The very common symbiotic relationship are three types, that is mutualism. Here, both partners are metabolically dependent upon each other and one cannot live without the help of the other. However, none of the partners they are suffering or having any harm from this association. So mutualism here, both the partners are equally benefited and none are sufferer. So example is the relationship between certain species of flagellatal protozoa living in the gut of the terminate. So this is an example for mutualism. Second, commensalism. Commensalism, here an association in which the commensals takes the benefit without causing injury to the host. So here one-sided benefit is being taken, but there is no harm on the other side. So most of the normal flora of our human body, say for in the oral cavity or in the bacterial flora, they are the examples related of commensals. Parasitism, an association where one of the partner is harmed and other lives at the expense of the other parasite. So here the host is harmed in cost of giving a life to the parasite, and this is called as parasitism. So example, say for Ascaris lumbricoides resides in the gastrointestinal tract of man and feeds all the nourishment from the intestine, and which gives rise to nutritional deprivation to the humans. The basic factor of transmission of parasitic diseases deals with the three conditions. So how the disease is transmitted in parasitic infestation, there are three conditions. One is the source of infection. So what are the source of infection? What are the routes of infection? And third is a suitable susceptible host. So let us see one after other. The source of infection. So here, who can be a source of infection? First, the patient himself, who is a sufferer. So the person who have parasites in their body and who shows clinical signs and symptoms can be one of the source of infection. There can be other, which is known as carrier, the person who have parasites in their body but they do not show any symptoms. Reservoir host, that is animals that harbors the same species of parasite as man, and sometimes the parasites in animals can transmit into human, so they are reservoir host. So as we said, it can be animal or it can be humans as well, which are reservoir and they are just in favor of transmitting, so they can become a source of infection. Next, the routes of transmission. So how the disease is transmitted? Via various routes, say for congenital transmission. So in cases of congenital transmission, the infection is transferred from infected mother to the infant in cases of toxoplasmosis or toxoplasma gondii. Then it can be from contact transmission, that is direct contact. So example, trichomonas vaginalis, where there is vaginal infection in one person, and that can be especially in females, that can be infective to males also. So indirect contact, that is through Ascaris lumbricoides, where indirectly through the soil and all, we are consuming the larva and getting in indirectly infect contact, coming direct indirect contact and getting infected. Next comes food transmission, the infectious stage of parasite which is contaminated with food, and the meat which is becoming intermediate host, say for uh, Tinea solium and Tinea saginata. Water transmission, So drinking of the water which is contaminated with the infectious stage of parasite can again transmit the disease, infection of parasite. Next comes the soil transmission, that is contamination of the soil by feces containing certain stages of parasite. This is by soil transmission. Next comes the anthropoid transmission, where the vectors play important role in transmitting the diseases. Under soil transmission we can have the examples. So next comes the susceptible host. In general, most people is the susceptible host. Who is susceptible? The one who is having less of immunity. The parasite reaching a susceptible host must gain entrance and set up a favorable residence in order to complete its life cycle and cause the transmission of parasitic disease. So a susceptible host is one whose immunity is allowing the parasite to have their life inside their body, and they are giving a favorable condition so that the life cycle is continued of the parasite. The avenues of invasion in digestive tract, most common avenue of entrance is through food and water. In cases of skin, the infective larva perforate skin and reaches to the body and establish infection, that is with soil and water transmission. From water transmission and soil, again it can penetrate to the skin. Then blood. Blood sucking insects containing infective parasitic bites, uh, which are the parasite is injecting and taking the human blood and injecting the infective form to the host, say for plasmodium. The prevention measures of parasitic diseases are controlling the source of infection, that is treatment of the patient, the carriers and the reservoir host, intervention at the root of transmission, managing feces and water resource, controlling or eliminating vectors and intermediate hosts. Then by protecting the susceptible host, so whoever is a susceptible host, we should pay attention to personal hygiene. Changing bad eating habits, taking medicine timely can help in prevention. Then effects of parasites on the host. So the parasite, when it is uh, residing in a human being, it can cause injury. This injury can be mechanical. So mechanical injuries may be inflicted by a parasite by means of pressure as it grows larger. Example, hydatid cyst. So in cases of hydatid cyst, due to its large growth, it can produce some pressure symptoms. It can cause blockage of the ducts such as blood vessels and can produce infarction even. And there can be other example under mechanical injuries, biliary ascariasis. And in these cases, ascaris is obstructing or can perforate or can cause increase in the intra-abdominal pressure and thus causing mechanical injuries. There can be toxic effect, that is deleterious effect of the toxic substance. Say for from plasmodium falciparum, there is production of toxin substance which can cause very much rigors and symptoms associated with the toxins. Example, mosquitoes, spiders, ticks, they produce certain type of venoms which when inserted from their mouth to the part of the skin of the human may cause irritation, allergy, or some other toxic reactions. There can be deprivation of nutrient, fluid, and metabolites. That is, parasite may produce disease by completing with the host for nutrient. Example, hookworm. It sucks the blood, so the person is getting deprived of the nutrients. So one is mechanical, the other is the toxic effect, the third is the nutritional or fluid and metabolites deprivation, other is immunological reaction. So these parasites, when they are coming to infect the body, it is our immunity which helps us to protect from that for their further growth. So if during this there can be an immunological reaction in which there can be a tissue damage which may cause immunological response of the host. Depending on the immunological response, either the parasite is immediately getting destroyed by the giant cell or the macrophages, or they are into their success of living their life cycle. Example, cystosoma, liver cirrhosis. When hydrated fluid is released from the rupture of hydrated cyst, anaphylactic shock can also result. Example, nephrotic syndrome in cases of plasmodium, where the human immune response is failing and therefore the pathology is worsening. Now let us see the classification of parasites. So under the classification, there are so much to know, but the classification of parasite is many a times controversial. There is no universally accepted system as such, because the parasite form part of animal kingdom, which comprises of more than 8 lakh identified species with 33 phylums categorized. And the parasite organism that are important to human health are eukaryotes. So we have classified it into a very shorter level for our medical parasitology, under which we study the protozoa and the helminth. So parasite that are classified into two subkingdoms, that is protozoa, unicellular one, and metazoa, the multicellular organism, in which we are going to deal with the helminths. Protozoa, the unicellular parasites, are classified according to their morphology and their means of locomotion. So most protozoa species that cause human disease belong to the phylum of Sarcomastigophora and Epicomplexia. Next comes metazoa, that is multicellular organism, which include the helminths as well as the arthropoda, the vectors. Now there is a important note, that is when we are writing the name of the parasite, how we should start. So the genus start with the capital letter, and the genus name, it should start with the capital letter, and the species should start with italics. So this is an example given here. Plasmodium, the genus name is starting with a capital letter, and the species name, it is starting with the italics. Here again the second example of Giardia lambia is given. Now let us see how this nomenclature has to be applied. Each parasite possesses two names, a generic and a specific. The former begins with an initial capital and the latter with the initial small letter, after which comes the designator's name who had identified, and followed by a punctuation mark, and finally the year in which it was discovered. So here we are showing that the generic and specific names are in italics but not the designator's name. So I give an example here. You can see both can be in italics but not the discover's name. Now classification of parasites. Uh, the proper classification, let's see. The parasite which are medically important have to deal and are being divided in three main groups. So phylum protozoa, that is single celled organism which multiply in human host, and they are called as medical protozoology. Next come phylum Platyhelminths and Platynemahelminths. They are multicellular organism. They do not normally multiply in human host. They are called as medical helminthology. Then we have the third category, that is phylum Arthropoda, which is dealing with medical entomology. This is a chart which is showing the classification in the taxonomic manner, where we have the protozoa basically. So the subkingdom protozoa with its different four types of phylum, under which one is Sarcomastigophora, Apicomplexa, Celiophora, and Microspora. So with this Sarcomastigophora, we have two subphylums. One is Sarcodina and the other is Mastigophora. And with Apicomplexia, Celiophora, and Microspora, we are directly going with the name of the genus and species. So genus Entamoeba. So therefore, the species name comes with Entamoeba histolytica, where E is capital and histolytica here H is small. Giardia lambia, Plasmodium fish species, and Balantidum B. coli, Celiophora. Now first let us see Mastigophora. These are all flagellates. They have one or more whip-like flagella for their locomotion. At some stage of their life cycle, in some cases, there is presence of undulating membrane. In cases of Trypanosoma cruzi and bruzi, there are undulating membrane. That is again looking like a flagella only. The mastigophore includes the intestinal and genitourinary flagellates, and there are blood and tissue flagellates as well. So, the intestinal and genitourinary flagellates are Giardia lamblia, Trichomonas vaginalis, which are important for our syllabus, and the blood and tissue flagellates are Trypanosoma cruzi, Trypanosoma brucei, and Leishmania donovani. This is a morphological structure of Giardia lamblia with flagellas, with nuclei, axonomes. Next comes Sarcodina. They are all typically amoeboid and include Entamoeba, Endolimax. All these are the varieties where they are shapeless mass of moving cytoplasm, which is divided into granular endoplasm and clear ectoplasm. So they move by pushing out the ectoplasm to form pseudopodia, into which the endoplasm then low. So amoeba reproduce asexually by simply dividing into two, that is by binary fission. This is an morphology of Entamoeba histologica. You can see the pseudopodia. Complete structure is there. Next is sporozoa. So the members of this superclass undergoes complex life cycle with alternating sexual and asexual reproductive phases involving two different hosts. In that again comes coccidia, which are intracellular parasite that reproduce asexually by the process called as schizogony and sexually by sporogony. So class coccidia include isospora and toxoplasma, and class hematozoa includes the malarial parasite, that is plasmodium species. This is the structure of all four types of plasmodium species: Plasmodium falciparum, malari, oval, and vivax. Next comes Celiophora. So these are complex protozoa bearing cilia. So there is cilia, short hairs, which is distributed in the rows or in the patches by which they move. They have two kinds of nuclei, macronucleus and micronucleus, and a large contractile vacuole. Ballantidinum coli, a giant intestinal ciliate of humans and pigs, is the only human parasite representative of this group. That means medically important only one, that is Ballantidinum coli, is one which is ciliated ones under Celiophora, which is medically important. Excuse me. So this is the structure of Ballantidinum coli. Now let's see the elements. So under elements, there are two classification. That is, one is platyhelminths and other is nemahelminths. Platyhelminths is again divided into cystoda and trematoda, and nemahelminths is nematoda under the class. So they have the species like Tinea saginata, Tinea solum, and Echinococcus granulosus under cystoda, and trematoda we have Schistosomiasis. Then nematoda we have Enterobius vermicularis, Ascaris lumbricoides, or Ankylostoma duodenale, and etc. So let us see one after other. Cystodes. These are tape-like, they are segmented and hermaphrodite organism. They have suckers in their head, and in some species also they have hook that attach the tapeworm to its host. So it consists of a head that is called as colex and many proglottids, the segment parts, and the alimentary canal and body cavity, they are absent in this, and examples are Tinea sodium, Tinea saginata, or Echinococcus granulosus. This is the structure of Tinea saginata. You can see the proglottids, these are the segments, these are scolex with suckers. Tinea solium is little smaller as compared to saginata. Next comes trematodes. They are leaf-like unsegmented structured organism. Sexes are not separate, but exceptionals are there. Cystosomes, they have separate sex, which are dioecious. They don't have hooks and suckers in their head. Alimentary canal is present but is not complete. So anus is absent in that case, and the body cavity is also absent. Examples of trematodes are cystosoma, fasciola. These are relative. So cystosoma having two species, cystosoma hematobium, cystosoma mansui. Nematodes, their body is elongated, cylindrical, and unsegmented. Sexes are separate, that is, they are dioecious, and they also lack hooks and suckers, as in cystodes. They possess the complete alimentary canal and body cavity, and therefore the example under nematodes for which infect the which are habitating in the intestine are say for in small intestines are Ascaris lumbricoids, the common roundworm, Ankylostoma duodenale, the old world hookworm, or Nectar americanus or American hookworm. This is the picture of Ascaris lumbricoids. Then other which habitat in the cecum and vermiform appendix, like example Anthrobius vermicularis, the threadworm or pinworm or seatworm, and Trichuria trichurius, the other name is whipworm. Next is where they are residing inside the tissues and organs. So they are like in the lymphatic system or in the subcutaneous tissue, in the lungs or in the conjunctiva. So here you have the examples for the lymphatic system, that is Escherichia bancrofti. In the subcutaneous, we have Dracunculus medensis. In the lungs, we have Strongyloids stercolaris and conjunctiva loa loa. So this is an example of whipworm, uh, the Trichuria trichuris, commonly called as whipworm. Here male and female worm you can see, and you can also see the eggs. This is Wisteria bancrofti, which is habitating in the lymphatic system. This is Dracunculus medensis, which is residing in the subcutaneous tissues. Now let us go in brief with the parasitic classification. Just we have completed almost of the classification. This is under one slide we can see the protozoa as well as elements for a quick revision. So protozoa here, they are unicellular organisms. They are single celled. Uh, they have categorized into amoebae, flagellates, sporozoa, and ciliates. And accordingly, we have the amoeba with variable size. Example, Entamoeba histolytica. Under flagellates, possesses flagellates for locomotion, which include intestinal as well as hemoflagellates, say for Leishmania, Donovani, Giardia intestinalis, or Trichomonas vaginalis. Then we have sporozoa, where they produce spore or oocyst, which alternation of generation and host occur. Here the example goes with Toxoplasma gondii and Plasmodium species. And last, that is the ciliates, where the cilia are the organism which is medically important, is only one ciliated protozoa, that is Ballantidina coli. So under elements we have multicellular organism. Each special cell performs a particular function, and therefore they are having three categories: trematode, nematode, and cystode. So trematode, they are the leaf-like unsegmented, sexes are not separate, incomplete alimentary canal is there, body cavity is absent. Example, cystosoma. Nematodes, they are elongated, cylindrical, unsegmented, separate male and female worms are there. The body cavity is present. Example, hookworm, roundworm, that is Aries or Ankylostoma duodenum. Then cystodes, tape-like segmented,